Kugan Cassius IFL TV with Eddie Hearn. Welcome to part 2 of our Q&A.
Two. Part 2.
Part 2, that's what I said.
No, I was just
doing a part 2.
giving it more like part 2.
Against that. Billy Warburton. Could be Warburton. If Frampton beats Martinez, do you think that a Frampton Quigg unification fight could be a real possibility for next year?
Yes, even December.
Or earlier, yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Paul Walker, hi Kugan. My question for Eddie is, which fighter, if any, do you feel was the one that got away, i.e. a fighter you tried to sign for Matchroom but signed for someone else instead?
I don't want to sound like, but I mean, everyone that we've really made a big play for, we've got. So, the one that got away.
No one?
No one got away. No, I mean, there hasn't been anyone that we've tried desperately to sign and haven't got. So,
okay.
there could have been ones that got away. Joshua, Campbell. That's those sort of.
Yeah.
I think they're the ones that could end up being one that got away.
Okay. Robert Green, hi Eddie. I went to my first boxing event at Wembley for the rematch.
Good to hear. Let's give him a pair of tickets so he can go to his second one. I don't even know. He's not called me a...
Robert Green, no,
called me
he
anything
called you a
naughty.
waste man.
Okay.
Robert Green, that's the old
the
goalkeeper, yeah. Just wondered, do you think there will ever be a national stadium just for boxing, or is the sport not big enough for that?
That's a terrible question. Take those tickets away from him. I'm joking. No, I don't think there will be, no.
No, okay.
But I think there could... I mean, there's certain venues that are synonymous with sports, aren't there? So I think there could be. I mean, I'd love to make Wembley the venue for outdoor boxing.
But solely for...
No.
Okay. You remember this guy? Josh Woogs.
Oh, I've still blocked him.
Hi Kugan, thanks for the t-shirt. Eddie, are there any plans to make an interactive Matchroom boxing app? I love an app where we can upload scorecards before after the fight, see the other scored fights, prediction leagues, polls, other interactive stuff. Also, seeing as I'm a changed man and very apologetic, please will you unblock me? Lots of Matchroom fighters follow me on Twitter and will vouch that I'm a reborn sound chap.
Do you know what, right?
Even Coogie follows me.
I don't really block a lot of people, right? This geezer was an absolute helmet on Twitter.
Can I
the
just
best
say,
word to
can
explain
I say one
right?
thing? Can I just say one thing to you? We had this conversation 2-3 Q&As ago, and you actually said then that you would unblock him.
Yeah, but I just want to tell you the story before I do unblock him.
Okay.
He was a knob, an absolute knob. Josh Woogs, I hope you are a changed man, because it's just like reading shit, like abusing me and like abusing my fighters and just talking so much shit. So it's a very good question. So firstly, you're going to get 2 tickets, right? And then I can't remember what the question was because I was more thinking about Josh Woogs.
It was about an app.
The app is a good question. It's something we're looking at. We're focusing more on the live streaming at the moment, so it's going to take a back step. And I'm going to unblock him. And I'm trying to do it now, but I can't find him.
At Josh Woogs.
All one word.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it is. Anyway, carry on. I'm going to unblock him. And we'll see how we get on.
Alright, make sure you do it.
But I want it to be known that... Here he is.
Who?
I want it to be known that you, my son, were a bellend.
Can I...
He was. No, he was, because I don't block people who ain't bellends. There's a few who are on borderline blocking at the moment. There you go.
Alright. I can confirm.
Oh.
Just like I can confirm Johnny Wish is a real person that he done that. Fally. Sorry. I think this question is funny. Eddie, I get the impression that most promoters dislike you and think that you are too big for your boots and want to see you fail. Do you think this is true?
Yes, 100%.
What bit?
All of it.
Okay.
Anyone wants to. When you're a business where you're just like flying, obviously people look at
Not
me and
all of
think,
them dislike you though, do they? Surely not.
I would think of the perceived bigger promoters. I mean, there's a lot of smaller promoters that I think. I know I'm in partnership with a lot of them. Get on with very well, but I think the big. Well, it's mainly the Sky thing, wasn't it? I mean, all of a sudden I come in, get the exclusive relationship with Sky. That computer's gone off. It's supposed to be like that.
Yeah, it's fine.
And they just think, you know. And I suppose sometimes if you didn't know me, you might think I was a bit of a knob. I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't believe I'm arrogant in the slightest, and I hope I don't come across that way, because I think it's a disgusting trait. But maybe I could see. Oh, look at him fucking swanning around, thinking you know, I could imagine those sort of.
Yeah.
But you know, it's part and parcel, isn't it? I mean, what can you do?
What can you do? Yeah. James Hickson.
Yeah, no, James Hickson, nice bloke.
If there was a loss which you could overturn for one of your fighters, which would it be and why?
Great question. He's probably coming to Liverpool or Glasgow, but give him 2 tickets anyway. Great question. Trying to think of the loss that hurt me the most. The one that I was just gutted with. Gutted.
Wald.
No, I didn't know Carl well enough then. And I didn't really know what to expect.
Crawford Burns. Martinez Barker.
No, because I hoped Darren would win, but that was such a tough fight. Crawford
But
Burns.
Barkerstone.
Yeah, that hurt. That hurt. Do you know that hurt? But seeing Darren so, like, that was one of those that really hurt. But then we got back to the hotel, and I just remember him sitting there with a beer, and he put his head back, and he was like, "It's all over." This pain and like that I've had to go through to get, you know. So it was kind of a weird one. Such a good question.
Billy Stevenson.
Yeah, that hurt. But again, they're such tough fights. You hope you'll win, but you know how tough a fight is. So I'll have to have a think about it. It's a really good question. Turn back one loss.
Alright, come back to it when you think of it. Brian King. Brian King said
He's still blocked, Brian King.
Yeah. He's alright with me. I don't need to block him in it. But he sends in a lot of questions. A lot, even though he's asked to send in one. But, you know, I picked one because he's a boxing fan. Swiss Tony, as he calls you.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you know that?
No, but he calls me a lot of things.
There's his nickname for you, Swiss Tony. Yeah. I'm doing a charity night for sudden death syndrome on the 5th of July. It's in aid of my cousin who's died in March. A couple of boxers are donating things for the auction. I'm wondering if you would like to help. If you do, I join the cult of Hearn for 1 week, where you shall have my full backing, like you get off Matt and his weird sidekick James, aka Jess.
Yeah, he can have some stuff.
You give him some, just
Yeah,
like that.
give him some science stuff.
You can do it via me if you don't want to.
Okay, yeah, I'll do it via. I don't mind. He's a very bright guy, and he's actually quite funny, but it's just difficult. Like I try and use Twitter to help people who've got questions, and it's just with them. It's just like I don't block him because like he really gets on my nerves. I block him because it's like fucking relentless. The whole timeline, it's just, and you can't really talk to him because he's so warped on being anti-Matchroom and anti-me that, and a lot of it is tongue in cheek. And I do think he's a bright, funny guy. I do worry about these people with time on their hands. I mean, there's another guy at the moment who just abuses me all day, and I think, what do you do?
Is that the one you said about the other day?
There's a couple, but some of them aren't real. Some of them are people that I know are doing it.
Alias accounts.
So yeah, I'll sort Brian King out, no problem.
Alright. Cal.
I want to have a beer with Brian King in Glasgow.
That's what I said to him. Brian King.
Didn't he think that if we do that, I'm going to bash him up? Or
That's what
something?
rumours said, that he's going to get the Matchroom Brigade waiting in the wings.
No, I'd just like to have a beer with him. I think it'd be quite amusing.
Brian, I don't think Brian's coming to the show. Why don't you give him 2 tickets to the show?
Go on then.
Right, so Brian, no excuses for Glasgow. You said you weren't coming because of the...
But the difference is he's got to come, because in the past he said he wouldn't come even if I gave him tickets. So, but he's got to come, and in return I'll make sure that he gets all the memorabilia, and I'll even bring it to Glasgow.
Right, you can't get away with that. Get away from that rather. 2 tickets to Glasgow, and Swiss Tony will bring your memorabilia there. What else can you say?
Good luck for a good cause.
Cal. When our domestic fighters are flung into world title fights, they invariably come up miles short. Do you think that Stephen, Paul and Kel have a realistic chance of winning their bouts or even putting up a good performance? Stephen Smith, Paul Smith, Kell Brook.
I think Kell Brook is a 50-50 fight, which I believe he's going to win. Stephen Smith is not made yet, so we won't talk about it till it's done. And Paul Smith is an underdog against Abraham. But Paul Smith is very experienced. He can punch. I mean, one of the problems with Brian in that fight is he's not a huge puncher. So once you're in a position like he was in, how are you going to get back into the fight? And, you know, that was the problem. Again, it's a case-by-case scenario. And no one's flung into a fight. If it's the right opportunity for that fighter, and there's all kinds of different motives. And yeah, a lot of them are financial for the fighter. An opportunity to change their life and to secure their future. And this is a tough sport with a very, very short shelf life. You try and say short shelf life.
Short shelf.
Exactly.
Short shelf life.
Short shelf life.
Oh. Okay. Steptoe.
Yeah.
Eddie, can you please stop bigging AJ and Callum Smith up so much? You're setting them up for a massive fall. If they fail, you go way over the top about them.
I'm a promoter, my old son. That's what I do. And these are 2 of the very best talents in the world. And I'll continue to talk about them in such way. And unfortunately, when you're that good, the pressure is on and you got to deliver. But that's sport and that's life.
Okay. Mole Man, Hearns. I've heard that Frotch Groves has done nearly 1 million pay-per-view buys.
You know, people can't see you again, but it's up to you.
Oh yeah,
it's
sorry.
a bit difficult.
I've done it all the way through it, but people are going to...
But it's a bit weird when someone's just looking at
oh, okay. I'm sorry.
a bit of paper.
I've heard it's nearly done 1 million pay-per-view buys, more than Mayweather, Maidana. If this is true, you are the man. If this is wrong, you are not.
In truth, we haven't got the final figures, and they're not something that we'll be releasing. There's been a lot of speculation, and most of the speculation is reasonably accurate. Again, it's not, you know.
Could it be as high as that?
Until everything's in. I mean, I don't really feel comfortable talking about it because it's not something that's really, you know, it's not. If Sky made it public, then I'd be comfortable talking about it. It's not really, you know. But I think it would, you know, for it to beat the Madonna. Don't forget our population.
A lot smaller. Okay, Callum Jones. Does Eddie feel as if he needs to sign rival promoters fighters, i.e. Cleverly DeGale, in order to make the fights happen, i.e. Cleverly Bellew, DeGale Groves? In other words, is the only way he feels he can make fights with other promoters fighters?
I think I've got a much better chance of making those fights if obviously they're under one stable. I'm interested in fighting any fighter who is quality, who is out of contract, who is interested in joining Matchroom. So, you know, we've signed some unbelievable fighters. I mean, our stable is second to none. But yes, in answer to your question, I mean, a good example of that is Nathan Cleverly would not be fighting Tony Bellew if they were in different stables. Probably. Well, definitely in the particular stables they were in. So, great that we get to see those fights.
Okay, Carl Newman. Does Eddie think he can work with Frank Warren to avoid the top-ranked Golden Boy style cold war that is damaging boxing? If so, any fights you would like to make?
Loads of fights I'd like to make. I don't think it's going to happen because I'll give a row of beans about him. I mean, I don't think I'm at the top of his Christmas card list, but he's got a job to do for his station, Box Nation. I've got a job to do for the station I work for, Sky Sports. I want to make sure that the quality fights in the UK are on Sky Sports. So unless the position comes where we get a huge offer, that I sit down with my fighter and say, we've had this offer, it's up to you. If they say, I want to take the fight, that's fine. I'm not sure whether those fighters on the other side will be allowed to take that fight. So that's the difference. But I don't see us matching fighters together in the near future. Nothing new in boxing. Frustrating, I know. But the bigger our stable gets, the more great fights we can make in-house. And we haven't really had the opportunity to do that yet, but the plan, plenty of in-house fights happening, or in the pipeline.
Okay. Charles Pimblett, do you think the standard of British boxing is improving? If so, do you think it's because the coaches are improving, both amateur and pro, or the boxing is being better managed and promoted?
I don't think being better managed or promoted is going to improve the standard of box. I mean, at present, it could do in the future with more blood coming into the sport. And I think you're going to see participation numbers increasing all the time in boxing, because I think it's becoming sexy again. I think it's becoming a hot sport. And I think that British boxers are improving. I think promoters are working harder. I think fighters are getting more opportunities. And I think we've got some great trainers in this country. So yeah, on the whole, I believe our fighters are improving, and they're going to continue to do so.
Mocha. There you are, mate.
Mochachinos.
Now with Matchroom, so many boxers under their roof, have you considered something like an end of year Matchroom Boxing Awards event where all the boxers and staff and Matchroom Boxing gather around the prestigious location, and Matchroom gongs are awarded for a number of categories, i.e. Boxer of the Year, Bout of the Year, KO of the Year, Venue Event of the Year, voted by fans on the Matchroom website?
No, I think that's a little bit...
Hey, look at me.
It's a bit... I don't know, it doesn't quite feel right. I think awards should be given by governing bodies, not promotional companies.
Across the whole...
Yeah, sport,
yeah.
Not just that.
Kelly Holgate. What was the funniest moment from the Foxgroves 2 build-up?
There's so many fun. I mean, the Rubik's Cube was quite funny, because obviously Carl's sitting there and George is doing this, and the snappers are on Carl, and Carl's talking, and all of a sudden the snappers are on George, and it was I knew Carl was sort of thinking, I'm not going to look down there what he's doing, but what the fuck is he doing? Then, I mean, the push on the pitch was not funny at the time, but looking back, the reactions was quite funny. With George, sort your boy out. Oh, hello, sweetheart, talking about his brother and all that sort of stuff. The security dilemmas at the show, oh my God, it was painful. It wasn't funny at the time, but look, I think looking back, there was a lot of funny stuff, but at the time, there was a lot of, so, I don't know what was.
Do you know how many views that Shovegate video had?
How many?
540.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Riley, if Cleverly fights Bellew, what will you do with the loser? Fuck them off. Ha ha. P.S. Keep up the good work.
No, in answer, win or lose, I believe both fighters will change for a world title. Because you have to understand, in the cruiserweight division, it's so difficult to match. And like, Calla is looking out for a fight. Calla would love Cleverly and Bellew in world title fights now. I could make them like that. But the biggest fight, financially, for the pair of them, and the biggest fight for Britain, certainly in that division, is for them to fight each other. The winner will definitely go on to fight for a world title, and I believe the loser will as well. I think they'll come back, they'll have a 10-rounder, and they'll be straight in a world title fight.
Okay. Daniel Blackham. What would you rather do? Sign any fighter in the world you wanted for your Matchroom stable on a 10-fight deal, or sign any player you wanted for Orient for no transfer fee and a 5-year contract? That's a good question. Who would you choose for both? footballer-wise?
Well, 10-fight deal. I would say Mayweather, but I'm not sure he's got 10. I'd have a bit of a mare.
Who would you have?
But he's probably got. You'd make so much money, you might just take him for the 3 fights or whatever he's got left. Do you know what? Sometimes, like the likes of Andre Ward. I just think you could do so much for him, from a profile perspective, because and this is the whole thing with promoting in the US. So many of their fights, like you go to a weigh-in. I was at the Rose Andrade weigh-in, and there's not one person there other than his team supporting Andrade. And the same for Algieri, who's from down the road, and the same for Provodnikov. And then you got Brian Rose gets on a scale. There's 200 people from Blackpool there. I mean, it's just a different cult. I don't know what it is. So that's that. Footballer, Messi.
Yeah.
Messi would do well in League One. I mean, he'd score a few goals.
Brisbane Road.
He'd get booted everywhere. I probably couldn't touch him.
Oscar Toons, take away the last 3 Froch pay-per-view events. Would Matchroom's boxing business be profitable on its own? Is the key to sustaining Matchroom boxing the profit earned from your other sports and using that to partly subsidise the boxing business?
Since my inclusion in boxing, we've virtually because it does still happen, eradicated, whether you want to call them lost leading shows, because I always think they are lost leading shows. Everything we do is bang on. We pay the right numbers. Everybody gets paid instantly. If you're with a very credible, reputable business, and as a fighter, we're going to deliver. So every show, and listen, from a business perspective, it's a poor business to be involved with. Every now and again, you have a decent night where you sell plenty of tickets, but the profitability from a show generally comes through ticket sales, in that you've got a constant flow of TV revenue coming, but for the amount of fights we're putting on, the amount of fights we've got, and the amount of money we're paying, it's very difficult to make money on those regular shows unless they sell very well. And that's why I feel there's no atmosphere in US events, because promoters aren't working hard enough to maximise ticket sales and maximise fan experience, because 90% of the revenue comes from the broadcaster out there. Over here, I would say for the bigger shows, it's more like 60, even 70% of the revenue comes from ticket sales. That's why the fans are so important. That's why driving the show is so important. Driving the profiles of the fighters is so important. So I can't remember what the original question was, but I think we've dealt with it. And I would say that we don't have to use our other sports to subsidise the boxing business. With the pay-per-view shows, boxing is now the number 1 business at Matchroom. And pay-per-view shows give us the opportunity to invest in a sport, invest in new fighters, and be able to suffer losses if we need to. And sometimes we do. There's been a few shows, in the last 12 months, we try and make it as few as possible that have lost money. But there's always a plan behind why we're investing in that particular show or that particular fighter, etc., etc.
Okay. Lee Davies. Right, I've got one question.
Good question, by the way. That last guy can have.
Oscar Toons. Oscar Toons hit me up. It's a good name, Oscar Toons.
Fantastic. Really good.
Right, I've got one question and one question only. Sorry for doing this. I'm a bit of a wrestling nerd, and as well as a big boxing fan. And every year, wrestling fans get WrestleMania.
It's not Walks Gloves, is it?
I don't know. Lee Davis, no. Where the big matches happen and the whole weekend for fans to meet the stars, get photos, autographs, Hall of Fame ceremony, etc. Then the main event where the top stars perform. Could we ever see something similar in boxing? Frochko's come very, very close to this. Obviously, I know it's a completely different market, but the whole weekend built around that one big show is something boxing fans will find appealing. You could have old fighters appear at signings. It would really bring out the mainstream fans?
Yeah, give him some tickets. The first thing I've got to say, what was his name?
Lee Davies.
Lee. I've got some terrible news for Lee, in that wrestling is not real. So I'm sorry to break it. I'm only joking, Lee. But it's a good point. There needs to be the demand, and there needs to be the traffic driven to these events. And what I mean by that is, if you created this kind of event at a standard show, I'm not sure it would work. I mean, you saw at Froch Groves too. We had the workouts packed. We had the fan zones at the weigh-in. The weigh-in that had 4,000 people. You know, when you've got the product, you're able to build around it.
Yeah.
And certainly when we do big shows, that will 100% be the plan, to have more occasions like that.
Okay. Tickets for Lee. Coogie Bear, my brother from another mother. This is from Matt Bowes. After the massive Wembley show, do you feel more like pressure to deliver more fights events that in that stature or in the very near future, or perhaps more importantly, do you think it's important for Sky to deliver similar content for British fighters fighting for titles at home and abroad?
I think we're on a roll and we want to capitalise on that. I'm realistic enough to know that those nights aren't going to happen every couple of months, or even every 6 months, or maybe every 12 months. But I think what it does is it shows the potential, and if we can make the great fights, for me, it's not really about the size of the night. It's more about the getting certain fights made that I know are going to fill arenas and get people excited about that fight, that night, and ultimately the sport.
Okay. Sam Murphy. Where would a potential Groves de Gaulle fight to be held, and do you believe what do you believe is in the potential of that fight?
Depends where both guys are. If it happened now, I think it would sell out the O2. If one picks up a world title fight and the other one, if Groves got himself back on the horse and was back in the mix, then could do Wembley. It's too early to say. But it's got huge potential, that fight down the line. But one of them have got to get something.
Okay. Alistair Saniford. Why was there such a tiny ring for Froch Groves 2?
Because the champion will decide the ring size. There was nothing in the agreement that determined what size the ring had to be, other than it had to be within the regulations of the IBF and the British Boxing Board of Control. So I don't think it was as small as people thought it was because of the size of the venue. But the champion's choice was for a smaller ring, so that they could engage probably closer in battle. But there was no objections from Groves' team. There was no request from them to have a certain size ring in a contract other than within the regulations. So it was very similar size to the first fight actually, and actually they were pleased with the size of the ring in the first fight. So,
do you know what the biggest ring you can have in this country is?
24 foot.
I knew that.
Thanks for that.
I know that.
I mean, you could have whatever size you want.
But you don't really have 24.
Within the regular. Sometimes. In America, mate, I mean...
No, here you don't have them there.
No, but some fights. But in America, normally they have the 24-foot rings. But, for example, Provodnikov on Saturday requested a small ring. Didn't do him any good.
No. Josh Wickham, hi Coach, can I ask Eddie, is there a chance that you and other promoters in this country could sign deals where you will make your own purse bids for fights between your stables? A contract that will say whoever wins that bid will host the match. Surely that couldn't be broken because you would have both signed a contract. Will help to create more all-British fights.
Great question. Totally unrealistic, but great question. And I love the scenario. Because that's what I'm saying. Sometimes, I mean, Jamie McDonald-Paul Butler's a classic scenario where I will be more than happy to create our own purse bid, so whoever pays the most money gets the fight. And actually, I'd be happy to do that on most big fights because I think I'm unbeatable at the pay-per-view level, certainly. That's not pay-per-view, by the way, Butler against McDonald. But I like it. It won't happen because some people just don't want to work with you. So, but I do think it would be good fun.
Okay. Alan Wong. Eddie, here always goes on about how boxing is a business. If that's the case, why did he let his heart rule his business brain in signing George Groves up for Matchroom? What I mean by that is clearly he couldn't be impartial during the build-up, and after the fight, therefore, he didn't try and sign George Groves up.
Well, actually, I think he's won. Because his name's George Wong.
Yeah, I'm trying to...
Yeah. It was still a business decision because I think my relationship with Carl Froch would have suffered, therefore affecting my business. I talked to George after the first Carl Froch fight, but once the second fight was made, I had no discussions with him about signing him. It didn't feel right. It didn't feel... I don't know. It just... Again, you know how I feel about Carl Froch. I wanted him to win so badly. And I don't forget, I took a risk as well. Because if George Groves would have won, we probably would have ended up doing some work together with Sauerland. But ultimately, if we lost, I would have been in a much weaker position. So, you know, that's that. You know, I would say that I did let my heart rule my head a little bit, but I still think that if I would have signed George, my relationship with Carl Froch would have suffered, and therefore potentially affecting the business side. So I backed him.
Okay, Tim Ford. How highly do you value winning a European title on your way to world honours? And will prospects such as Callum Smith, Luke Campbell, Anthony Joshua be fighting for EBU straps?
Good question. And I think you're giving them tickets. And I think that I don't think the EBU title it's still as prestigious as it's ever been, and it's a great title, but I don't think it's as relevant strategically to progress into a world title as it used to be. Always used to be British or British Commonwealth or Commonwealth British, European world title. Now, with the immersion of more belts, intercontinental belts, silvers, final eliminators, it gives you an opportunity to progress up the world rankings quicker. A lot of times you can fight Europeans as well for those kind of fights. Still very prestigious, but I don't think it's as integral in the development of a fighter progressing to world honours as it once was.
Okay. B, just BEE. If the sanctioning bodies came together, meaning one champion for each weight, how many world champions would Britain have in your opinion? Brian?
Oh, you'd have to say potentially none. Because we got 4 at the minute. Paul Butler wouldn't be world champion. James McDonnell probably wouldn't be world champion. You got Marino there. He's a great fighter. You got some Japanese brilliant fighters at bantamweight. Carl Froch would have to beat Andre Ward, and Scott Quigg would have to beat Rigondeaux. So potentially none. You know, I think that 4 governing bodies is okay. You know, I mean, I know that sometimes it can confuse people. I don't think it's that confusing. And I just think one governing body, it would be difficult to carve out opportunities for fighters. There's too much politics to just have one governing body. I mean, 4's what I've always known as a boxing fan. So for me, it's not that confusing. Maybe it is to new fans, but it's, you know.
Okay. Macho Grande,
yeah, rings a bell.
Macho Grande. When referees and officials are appointed by the board to fights you promote, what contact, if any, do you have with them? Do you pay their expenses? Do you pay any food, travel or accommodation? If so, how is this administrated?
It's all done through the board. The board selects all the officials. Any contact with them? Yeah, all right, mate. That's about it. Some might stay in a hotel, walk past them at breakfast. Hello. I mean, I obviously know all the British Boxing Board of Control officials. They work on 24 shows for me a year. So, you know, I think the British officials are some of the very best in the world. And actually, after the George Groves fight, you have to say Howard Foster made a great stoppage in that fight. I mean, yes, it was 10 seconds, 15 seconds too early, but you know what was going to happen. And he was protecting the interest of the fighter. So I actually think that was a good stoppage. I'd still think it was too early, but I can see all the reasons behind it. And, you know, in answer to the question, the board select the officials. and all the payments are made to the board, who will pay the referees, etc., etc.
Right. Joe Desmond, with the possible expansion into America, will you look to appoint a number 2?
No, a lot. You know, I like to be very hands-on, so I do.
Who would you say is your number 2 now?
John Wish.
Not Frank Smith?
No, he's important, but you know, at the moment, I like to be hands-on, very hands-on.
Okay. Dan Napster wants to know, is there a potential of bringing out a Frotch Groves DVD?
Yes, there is actually.
He's been asking it for a while.
Talking about it.
Yeah, with both fights on it.
Yeah, talking about it.
If you want footage from the show, I've got that.
Yeah, that'd definitely be.
That.
Definitely.
There's this thing here that I'm going to say till the end, and I'll tell you why. Yeah.
How many more we got?
Not many. Look,
I've gone far for them.
Right, the Army. When you sometimes say new signings coming soon, do you think that other promoters panic and think you're going to try and steal their fighters?
Who knows? But I mean, we don't steal fighters, firstly. And again, not being arrogant, but I just feel if a fighter was out of contract, then they'd want to be with Matchroom and they'd want to be boxing on Sky Sports. So I think that ultimately it's just where they want to be. All right, Karen? Is Deck here?
Yeah.
Okay, it's going to be 5 minutes.
Okay.
All right.
It's Karen.
That was Karen.
I talked about Karen last time, wasn't it? Yeah. Right, let's quickly try and whiz through this. Right, hi Eddie, just want to say, great for British boxing, best night of my life at Wembley. Just want to know if social networks, i.e. Facebook, Twitter, are making fights easier as you can interact with the fans, see what fights we want to see. Also, you can see the fight demand on Twitter.
Yes.
And have you made a fight due to Twitter demand?
Yeah, I think so. It's always in the head. You know how big a fight's going to be. Also, more importantly, the fighters get access to... I mean, Paul Butler's a great example. You know, I've made them a £200,000 offer. Paul Butler comes back straight on going, I'll have that. Ka-ching. So it's like, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's pivotal.
Do you believe the boxing board is from Connolly B? Do you think the boxing board of control are doing enough to educate fighters and trainers about drugs in sport?
I think, listen, we are one of the best policed, you know, governing bodies, commissions, whatever you want to call them, for drugs in boxing. I've got huge concerns about drugs in boxing in America. The voluntary system that we've got here with VADA is fantastic. All of our fighters are getting knocks on the door at all times of the day to do random testing. And the fact remains that random testing is the only way you're going to catch drug sheets, because they're clever enough to know, and the system they're using, it's out of their system by the time they get tested on fight week. So you have to be interrupting their training during camps to catch them out. Okay.
Ryan Williams, a big thing has been made of poor judges' scorecards in the past year or so, especially the judge on Saturday having Promotional winning by a big margin. What does Eddie think will be a good thing the organisations could put in place to prevent poor scorecards, and why hasn't Frotch been upgraded to Super Champion after being unified champ for a year?
Tickets. Firstly,
Ryan Williams.
I think that, you know, it's nothing about being dodgy. Some judges are just poor and see things differently. Believe it or not, the governing bodies do look at what they perceive to be a poor judging decision, or one like that might stand out. And, you know, I think something like that, the judge would be called in before either the commission or the governing body to discuss their reasons for scoring it like that, because it was so wide. And, you know, I think that there are some quality judges and there's some poor judges as well. What was the last bit of the question? Oh, Frotch. I don't know why Frotch hasn't been unified Super Champion. And I'm speaking to Gilberto Mendoza about it, because Andre Ward is the WBA champion, that's it. Carl Frotch is the IBF and WBA. So I think, well, he is also Super Champion. Or it says so on the website, but I saw a piece the other day saying he's a regular champion. All very confusing.
How can he be regular champion if Carl Froch's got a WBA belt?
No, Carl Froch is just a regular champion. That's what I'm saying.
yeah.
But then he should be super because he's unified. But as he doesn't have the, I don't know.
Right. Goal. Both Prince Nassim and Amir Khan inspired a new breed of British Asians into boxing. We're starting to see a few come through like Atif Shafiq, Nav Mansouri, Irfan Iqbal. When can we see another British Asian be given the chance to shine on the Sky Sports platform as above are skilled and entertaining to watching, are more entertaining than watching some of the prospects shown on Sky, my opinion. Minority groups thrive on role models in the communities, plus there's a big market there. Matchroom are the people to make it happen.
I mean, I'm not really big on Asian, black, whatever. Fighter's a fighter. So we got Cal Yafai, Gamal Yafai, Carl Froch, supposedly half Polish. So it's not. I don't really look at it like that. When a fighter approaches us, we sign them on their ability, not the ethnic origin. So if an Asian fighter was to approach us, I wouldn't look at him and say, "Oh, we need an Asian fighter." I'd judge him on his ability. So if they're good enough and they approach us, then we're definitely interested in signing anyone, regardless of their colour, creed, ethnic origin, whatever.
Okay, Emil134. Eddie, are you concerned that Simmons and Camacho might go over the top next week in the build-up to their fight after what happened in the original press conference?
Yeah, I'm concerned, and I think both boys have got to be sensible enough to know we'll do it in the ring. But it's going to be lively at the press conference, there's no doubt about that. But I think everyone, and the fans included, have just got to everyone's going to be very overexcited about this fight. There's been a lot of hype. So let's get them in the ring and let them do their business. May the best man win.
Okay, Darag. Eddie, regarding the Liverpool show, great names on the bill, but are they really in competitive fights, honestly?
Yes, I believe Callum Smith is in a great fight against Vladim Biose. Look at who he's fought, just gone 10 rounds with Jay Leon Love, who's about to fight Sakio Bika. Talk about Callum, who's had like 11 fights. Rocky Fielding's fighting Noe Gonzalez. This is a really tough fight. Look at the level Rocky's been mixing with. Tony Bellew's in with a massive punching Brazilian, and Cleverly's in with an Argentinian who can whack a bit. He should win reasonably comfortable. I think AJ's in a decent test against Joshua. So, yes, I think good names and good fights. Some fights easier than others, but there's some interesting fights on the card. I just think if there wasn't, would we be selling it as well as we are? Anyway, I think so, yeah.
Okay. There was a question from a guy called Adam at Sports Verso, I think that's his Twitter, but I forgot to add it on. The question was in regards to Paul Smith and his last three opponents. He classed them as journeymen. Is it good preparation to for the Abraham fight, potential Abraham fight?
Yeah, it's not ideal, but because of his situation with the bald, he hasn't been able to defend his British title. So he's had to tick over and stay busy. It's not as ideal preparation as you would have liked, but that's his situation. The opportunities have arisen, and let me tell you, there is nothing you could do to stop Paul Smith fighting for a world title.
Okay, I'm pretty sure that was the question.
And he's got a great trainer in Joe Gallagher for him to make sure he gets world-class sparring and the right preparation.
Okay. There's something I want to read quickly, but this is the last question. There are people that think, I'm not one of them, that I am too pro Matchroom. Do you think that the other promoters think this, and Kugan, does it have an effect on IFL TV?
No, I don't think you're pro Matchroom at all. I mean, I think you think we're the best, and you've told me several times. But on a serious note, I think because we're reasonable pals, you are probably closer to us than any other company, but you've become very pally lately with a few others, very jealous about. But I would think, to look at, you look like you're closer to us.
Is that because you put on the more shows?
Probably.
And obviously you do more media stuff relating around your shows.
Yeah, probably. Well, no, I think just because you like me more.
Well, no, but if someone else is putting on 20, 30 shows a year...
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah?
But I mean, I wouldn't worry about it too much.
I'm not worried about it, I just thought it was something to end on. Right, quickly, an ode to Eddie. You ready? The time has come for another Q&A, so let's talk boxing. What do you say? Should I ask about how you and Coogs are matey and the abuse it brings from Brian King 80? You're up all night through dusk and dawn. Should I query about Kel and Showtime Sean? Or how about Wembley on that fabulous day when Frotch did the business on the 31st of May? I wonder about Matchroom with the move to the States and the Holiday Inn with Coog's filthy dates. I could ask about Khan and the offer on the table or the potential fighters coming to your stable. But forget about that. Now it's time. I have my question. I'll give it a rhyme. You know the sport. You've made it your trade. It's been a success with the money you've made. With this in mind, I want to see what changes you make to IFL TV. So use your head and let us know how to progress their brand and make it grow. That's from Michael Martin.
Very good.
Tickets, isn't it?
You can have some VIPs.
Yeah?
Yeah, you can have 2 VIPs for that.
Okay, VIPs for...
Very good.
What do you reckon? Good?
Very good. I think your IFL brand's going well. I think we're going to deliver more sponsors. And I think when you're going to have your own show on this Matchroom Fight Pass, I think you're doing all right. Yeah. I think you're going to see more and more sponsors come to you.
Yeah. We was already talking about one today, actually. Another one that's nearly done.
Oh, really?
Well,
I don't know about it.
You do know about it, but I just had a conversation with
The only issue you've got is, like, if you brought in a sponsor that was conflictive to one of my sponsors, that's when we'd have a problem. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like, say that the last show was sponsored by Betway. Say you were sponsored by another gambling company. I don't think I could give you the access because it would look horrific for my sponsor to be seen to be driving all my media stuff into this. Do you understand?
I do understand.
Anyway, that's another conversation.
We'll cross that bridge if we come to it. Alright, well listen, this has been Kugan Cassius with Eddie Hearn. Thanks for watching. Sorry if your question wasn't answered. There was 3,000 emails. I was up till 7 in the morning. I'm not crying about it, but sorry
Thank you. Thank you for all your support. That was the best one we've done.
That was great.
I think great questions. And very serious. You sometimes get a little bit of stick about asking silly questions. I saw a bit of that, but...
Listen, these ain't silly questions. I heard you waste, man.
I love the stick.
Embrace the stick. Alright, well this is Kugan Cassius, Eddie Hearn, IFL TV. Thank you for watching. Over and out.